I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about one of my favorite houseplants, and that is the African violet. For many of us, we have fond memories of our parents or our grandparents growing these plants. But a lot has changed in the years since we first started growing, and I want to talk to you about some of those changes and some general care and maintenance for the plant. When we first think about the African violet, we think about a standard plant that's going to have green foliage and purple flowers. A lot has changed thanks to hobbyist plant breeders, and we now have a wide array of colors for our flowers and actually our leaves too. When it comes to the flowers, we have anywhere from white to pink to purple. Foliage can be anywhere from variegated to splotchy to even quilted, so there are a lot of options out there. African violets can be quite large. A standard African violet can be anywhere from 8 to 14 inches in diameter, so they're quite large and quite lovely. When it comes to the smaller African violets, we have the semi-miniature and the miniature. A semi-miniature plant is going to have a diameter about anywhere from 4 to 6 inches in diameter. It's going to be less than 8. They offer quite a bit of foliage variation and some fantastic flower color. So if you're kind of pressed for space, a semi-miniature plant might be a good option for you. Then we also have the miniature African violet. We get all of the same great features of our larger cousins, but it's much more compact. A miniature African violet is going to be less than 6 inches at diameter. So again, if space is tight at home, these are some of the plants that you might want to consider growing in your collection. When it comes to general care and maintenance, the first question that I get a lot is why my plant is not blooming. And that's either because of the lack of light or fertilizer. African violets like good bright light, so if you have a south or east facing window, they will do great there. They also do pretty good underneath grow lights too. Second reason why a plant might not bloom for you is because you're not fertilizing it. And one of the things that you can do is fertilize it every time you water, but cut that dosage back to maybe a quarter to half of the recommended amount. So each time that you water, that you're giving the plants the nutrients that you need. And speaking of water, one of the myths that just won't go away is getting the leaf wet. Yes, you can get the leaves wet, but what will happen is you get water spots on the leaves, and that can detract from the overall beauty. And you can either water from the bottom or you can water from the top. The choice is yours. When it comes to the containers, you can go with a plain plastic pot like this one here. Nothing fancy, but it does a great job. But you always want to make sure that you have holes in the bottom, so that way when you do water, that it comes out of the bottom of the pot. There are some pots out there that are called African violet pots. These are hit and miss. You can try them, but I would not invest heavily on these because these work on the principle that you're sticking this insert in a reservoir of water. And what can happen is you can rot out the bottom of the pot and your plant's not going to be happy. And when it comes to potting mixes, there are quite a few different options on the market today, but what you want to do is pick up your favorite potting mix and add some perlite to the mix. This is going to increase the porosity of the potting mix so the plant doesn't rot out, and that's much more happier. In nature, African violets come from a very rocky region, so they like that loose potting mix, and they're much more happy. Hopefully some of these tips will help you get your plants to bloom again, and you have some options of plants to look for when you're at the garden center.